A unique perspective is one reason why Patricia Bridges has been able to make a career out of her longtime passion for pottery.
I'm a potter that makes mostly functional pottery that's used for the kitchen, table, and home. I work on the North Shore of Long Island, and I've been working in clay close to 3 decades.
A cozy studio in her Port Washington basement is all the space she needs to hone her craft.
I make all sorts of pottery that's used for your kitchen, for your table, for your home. So that would be everything from platters and bowls to butter dishes, colanders, pitchers. Some of it's wheel thrown on the potter's wheel, and some of it's hand built using various slabs and other techniques that aren't used on the potter's wheel.
Before she ever spent her days in the studio, Bridges earned an MBA and made a career for herself in marketing. She says her business background has allowed her creative talents to flourish.
Having a background in marketing has, I think, really helped me in terms of figuring out what I'm going to make, how I'm going to sell it, how I'm going to price it, and really working the side of actually getting my work out into the hands of people. I think I have an advantage having sort of a good knowledge base of how to market.
Bridges' father was an iron craftsman in New Hampshire, which inspired her to work with her hands at a young age.
I started out as a kid really spending a lot of time in the ceramic studio at school, and in high school my father set me up with a wheel and a kiln and was really able to develop my craft, so he was very supportive in that. Bring it out so the walls are slightly angled a little more.
Bridges doesn't just make her own pieces. She teaches private and group pottery lessons to students of all skill levels. Today, she's showing one of her students how to make her signature honeycomb bowl.
The first part of working on the wheel is centering the clay, and the clay looks like it's bouncing around like this. It's not centered. So ideally what you want is you want it perfectly centered on the wheel. So once the clay is centered perfectly, I'm going to drop a hole in it. If I didn't wet my hands so often, my hands start dragging on the clay. I squeeze the clay and I'm drawing it up, and the piece will grow taller and become more of a bowl shape. It's a bit like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. As you push, the clay's moving out, so it's moving up as I do that. But I'm going to make it a more decorative rim. A little bit of stuff off of this. I pinch the 2 rims. It's like a double rim, and then I pinch them together, and it makes sort of like a honeycomb. Okay. Yep. You're going to have to move a lot closer, though.
Now it's time for Bridges to turn the wheel over to her student, Lisa.
I started about 15 years ago, did about 1 year at another studio. I became pregnant and couldn't really even fit behind the wheel, so stopped. Decided to come back probably 1.5 years. And Patricia is an amazing teacher, so I've gotten much better.
When a piece doesn't come out quite right, Bridges will perform an autopsy of sorts. It's a valuable teaching tool for students like Barocas.
This part here, if we were to trim a foot, you'd have nothing left.
Way too thin.
Right, way too thin.
Many artists have relied on e-commerce from the internet for years, but it's been social craft sales through sites such as Etsy.com that have allowed craft makers to do more business remotely.
Now there's things like Etsy, which has completely changed the playing field in terms of what people can buy, how they can find it. So it's really quite different, and I think that piece of it's probably even more interesting to me than it was 20 years ago.
Even with the added competition, the former marketing exec says she's happy splitting time between pieces and people.
So more with your left hand. The balance of having my own business and making wares that I sell and see my customers, and then being able to teach it's a great combination for me. I really like it.
For more information, visit bridgespottery.com. For Push Pause in Port Washington, this is Louis Dane.